Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Monday evening, November 3, 2025. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you all like this video. I'd really appreciate it if you all get this video to 100 likes. If you don't know by now, that's how the YouTube algorithm works. We all like the video and then the YouTube algorithm pushes the video out to more persons who are in the path of these tropical systems so that we can keep everyone safe, especially during the peak months of Atlantic hurricane season that's August through to October. Share this video with your friends, your co-workers, your relatives, and even your church brethren, and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Please ensure that you all utilize the progress bar that's located at the bottom of the video, as well as the timestamps that are located not only in the comment section, but the video description, so that you can skip to the points in the video that you want to see the most in order to save time, because we know that the videos over here with the Jamaica can be very long. Leave a comment down below letting me know what the weather's been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Taking a look at the U.S. National Hurricane Center 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook that just came out at 6:05 p.m. Jamaica time. Tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days, and this is the reason why the Atlantic doesn't seem to have much of anything that looks like it wants, to develop. We have what looks like a frontal system right here of the east coast of the U.S. Tropical wave interacting with a trough here in the western Caribbean, just to the west of Jamaica, and we see clouds associated with the intertropical convergence zone right here, just to the west of Africa. And we know that if something should form, the next name after Melissa is Nestor. Taking a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening, we can see the blue spike line associated with that frontal system of the east coast of the US extending down to Florida and the Gulf. You can see broken orange lines right here just to the east of that frontal system associated with a trough. Tropical wave right here across the western Caribbean extending down to the southwestern Caribbean. Intertropical convergence zone extending all the way from Africa across the main development region's southern portions, all the way over into northeastern South America. And we still see that we have another frontal system extending all the way over from the US all the way over to maybe off the west coast of Europe. And just to the south of the eastern portion of that frontal system, we see a trough of low pressure. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic, let's see if we can make out all of these entities. We can actually make out the spin associated with the trough of low pressure right here. You can see the clouds associated with that frontal system extending all the way over into the eastern US. You can also make out that other frontal system whose clouds are stretching down into portions of Florida as well as the southern Gulf. We can also see the clouds associated with a tropical wave across the western Caribbean, and the clouds associated with the intertropical convergence zone extending all the way over into northeastern South America right here. We'll be talking more about the rest of the Caribbean's weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Monday, November 3, 2025. It was stated that rainfall could have been in the forecast of parts of eastern Jamaica on Monday morning, also affecting sections of some central and western parishes during Monday afternoon. I know eastern parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Surrey, like Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston, and St. Andrew. And I definitely got to know some of the rainfall this morning while I was leaving out for work. As a matter of fact, we were getting in on the rainfall from last night across my part of St. Thomas for sure. And we know central parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Middlesex, like St. Anne, St. Mary, Manchester, Clarendon, and St. Catherine. While western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall, like Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth. And what ended up happening? The visible satellite images of Jamaica before we lost sunlight showed that we definitely got in on some overcast skies, if not some isolated thundershower activity across sections of St. Anne, maybe northern St. Catherine, northern Clarendon, and especially Hanover. So it was more so some northern and northwestern parishes. We can definitely see the thunderstorms here. The infrared, if it didn't reload, okay, I think it reloaded and lost the imagery. But we definitely had some thunderstorms. We saw the sparkling white dots that indicate the lightning flashes across St. Anne into Hanover for sure. We can see that the thunderstorms right here into Hanover, exiting the western portion of the island and pushing off towards the northwest. So we definitely had some rainfall across central and western parishes, but it was more confined to St. Anne as well as sections of Hanover for sure. And we have the live camera from Jamaica's YouTube channel showing downtown Kingston today. Definitely sunny for the most part. Nothing to do with bad weather at all. People walking about, going about their business. People in their vehicles going about their business. And even the total accumulated precipitation for the past 24 hours from the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology website is confirming where we had that rainfall today, especially across sections of some northern and northwestern parishes for sure. And if we reload the very latest still image from the Weather News website, the latest Jamaican Doppler radar, the latest Cuban Doppler radar, the latest Guantanamo Bay US Navy radar, and the latest Cayman radar to see exactly what's taking place right now. As you can see, the latest still image is showing 0045 UTC, which is actually 7:45 p.m. So this just came out 11 minutes ago, considering that it is 7:56 p.m. right now. And as you can see, all of the clouds that brought us some overcast skies, if not some isolated thundershower activity today, have dissipated. Just some high cirrus clouds in the whitish shades still across sections of the island. And unfortunately, the Jamaican Doppler radar cannot confirm because it is still broken down since Melissa. Not to mention the Cuban Doppler radar, the Pelan radar still broken down, still showing that Melissa imagery from October 29 right there. But we're grateful that we can utilize the Guantanamo Bay US Navy radar. Not seeing much of anything across southeastern Cuba, northeastern Jamaica, or western portion of Haiti. And we're also seeing that on the Cayman radar, we're making out some of that rainfall that pushed towards the west off of Hanover. We see some of that right here to the southeast of Little Cayman. We can also see some rain bands right here just to the west of the Cayman Islands. We see the blues into the greens that indicate light to moderate rainfall. So nothing affecting western Jamaica at this time. The live camera from Jamaica's YouTube channel showing crossroads in St. Andrew. As you can see here, people in their vehicles going about their business. Nothing in the way of bad weather taking place, and that should be the order of the evening into the night. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, we can see that we're 26 degrees Celsius in Kingston, 27 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, and by about 4 a.m. on Tuesday, temperature should dip down to about 25 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 24 degrees Celsius in Kingston. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow. This map from the GFS is valid for about 18t on Tuesday, which is actually 1 p.m. on Tuesday. And we can see Jamaica right here embedded in the grays that represents average temperatures. We know that the zeros represents average or normal temperatures. I know the normal temperature for the month of November across Jamaica is around 31.1 degrees. Well, 31.1 degrees Celsius, which is actually 88 degrees Fahrenheit. So that should be the temperature forecast for Jamaica on Tuesday. And we're grateful that we don't see any maintenance outage advisories here from my JPS online Twitter page. You know, we usually have to highlight these because you know that when we have power outages somewhere across the island, it can definitely make the heat feel even worse because we don't have our fan or our AC to cool us down. So we're grateful that we don't have anything to worry about. But as you can see right here, we're still working on getting power restored to all of those areas that were affected. They're definitely hard at work. They posted today, Hanover, while some customers may not see damage on your street or in your community, there could be damage to our network miles away from you that we have to repair so you can be restored. This is why the damage assessment has to be done in order to give accurate timelines. And there we have some footage of all of the damage and so on. So they still have a lot of work to do in those heavily affected parishes out west. And we have some tips right here to beat the heat as usual. So if tomorrow is going to be a bit too hot for you, it stays here: dress down, wear lightweight clothing and use sunscreen. Check on others, including children, elderly people with medical conditions and pets. Be cool, stay indoors and make use of fans and air conditioners. Avoid alcohol and caffeine as they can make dehydration worse. Limit non-essential strenuous activity during the hottest parts of the day. And I cannot stress enough the importance of staying hydrated throughout the day. Drink lots of water even if you're not thirsty, and put away those sugar drinks and drink water instead. Taking a look at the dry air map, we know that the dry air is represented by what we see here on the key on the bottom. The yellows, the oranges, the reds, and the whites within those reds. And we can see an abundance of dry air starting to entrail into the Central Caribbean. A lot of dry air. So, you know, the dry air is responsible for shutting down the Atlantic, keeping the atmosphere stable. We see a lot of it off the east coast of the US extending down to the Gulf as well. And I'm sure after what we just had with Melissa, there are no complaints here. Bring on the dry air. Little to no rainfall. We know the blues basically is where the moist air is located, and we see a lot of moist air across Jamaica into the Western Caribbean, especially where we have that tropical wave, especially where we have the intertropical convergent zone. You know, that's where the air from the northern hemisphere meets the air from the southern hemisphere, and we have a lot of rising air. This is why we have cloud showers and thunderstorms down there. So there's not really much to worry about at this time. But regarding the Saharan dust forecast, we're still seeing that the next 3 days, November 4, November 5, and November 6, should all be in the clear for us. Not much in the way of Saharan dust at all. We see some of it pushing through the main development region, but that is on the low end of the scale. You know, if we're talking about vigorous plumes, we're seeing a lot of oranges into the pinks, and we don't see we don't see any of that at all. So we're grateful for that, because you know that the Saharan dust can definitely cause hazy skies, not to mention trigger respiratory illnesses in some persons. The wave forecast for tomorrow still shows more so those blues across the entire Caribbean, 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights, and that's because of the winds. We see those dull greens into bright greens. We're talking about anywhere from 5 to 10 to maybe 15 knots at most from the east, curving a bit more northeasterly across the greater Antilles into the western Caribbean. And if we take a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow across Jamaica, up to 1.5 meter wave heights to the north of Portland, 1 meter wave height to the north of St. Anne, to the north of Hanover, 1 meter wave height, to the south of Westmoreland, 0.6 of a meter wave height, but clearly the more south or west they go, it's going to be higher than that. South of Clarendon, 0.8 of a meter wave height, to the south of St. Thomas, 1.4 meter wave height. And that's because of the winds that are expected. We see more of a northeasterly flow of the winds tomorrow, and that should be averaging around 14 knots right here to the northeast of Portland, 11 knots right here to the north of the Trelawney and St. Anne border, 12 knots to the north of Hanover, to the south of St. Thomas, 13 knots. And we see where the air is expected to pile up. Wherever we have the least amount of wind, that's where we could have some of these low-level clouds becoming mid-level rain clouds, if not upper-level cumulonimbus clouds. But given that northeasterly flow, it could get in on some, relief rainfall, some of these winds causing clouds, and then all of that rising air, especially across the mountainous areas here in Portland. Maybe some rainfall, especially during the morning hours for sure. And the upper level winds are coming in from the northeast, so it's even aiding the activity even more. And if we take a look at the actual rainfall forecast maps, both maps right here from the Euro and the GFS are showing 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 10 a.m. Jamaica time, considering that we're now back on Eastern time as of Sunday. If you don't notice the change on your computer's clock, yes, we're back on Eastern time. So as you can see, we're seeing the blues represent rainfall for 10 a.m. on Tuesday across the northeastern parishes, maybe sections of St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland, getting in on some amount of rainfall. We see that both the Euro and the GFS mods are in agreement with that. Even by around 3 p.m., we're still seeing the blues represent rainfall across the northeastern end, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland. Some of this activity might spill into sections of St. Thomas, maybe Kingston, St. Andrew. The Euro trying to incorporate portions of St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth in some of that afternoon rainfall. We'll see it actually plays out. And regarding the total accumulated precipitation forecast maps here, both maps are in agreement that over the next 24 hours from now up until 10 p.m. on Tuesday, the most rainfall should be across the northeast. We're talking about St. Mary into Portland. The Euro going up to at least 0.47 of an inch of rainfall in Portland. The GFS going up to at least 0.31 of an inch of rainfall in Portland. And whatever happens, we will just have to take it. We are now in the month of November, and in Westmoreland, we usually receive 105 millimeters of rainfall this month. That's about the same as 4.1 inches of rainfall. In St. James, we usually receive 128 millimeters of rainfall this month. That's about the same as 5.0 inches of rainfall. Well, 5 inches of rainfall. And if you'd like to find out what your specific parish usually receives in terms of rainfall for the month of November or for the entire year, you can visit nomadseason.com and that website to show you that information. Alright, so we're going to be looking at what the next 7 days have in store for us according to the latest Euro and GFS Supercomputer model runs that came out today. So keep your eyes focused on the timestamp right here at the top as we go out to the next 168 hours. That stands for the next 7 days. Keep your eyes focused on Jamaica right here as we look for all of this that we see on the key on the right. That's the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and the greens that represents inches of rainfall. So let's see what's going to be taking place. Alright, so we just looked at Tuesday's forecast. Now it's time to look at Wednesday. 12th on Wednesday is actually 7 a.m. And we see some rainfall to the northeast of us, according to the latest Euro for Wednesday morning. And then on Wednesday afternoon, look at that. Rainfall across eastern, central, western, and especially southern parishes where we're even seeing some dark greens into the yellows and oranges. Interesting Wednesday afternoon. Does the GFS show the same? Wednesday morning looks like northeastern parishes once again with that rainfall. Wednesday afternoon rainfall also across some southern and western parishes. What do we see on Thursday morning? Thursday morning, not really seeing much of anything across Jamaica on the Euro. Then on Thursday afternoon, we're seeing rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes. What does the GFS show? Thursday morning, rainfall across northern parishes on the GFS. Thursday afternoon, rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes. What do we see on Friday morning? On Friday morning, not really seeing much of anything on the Euro for Jamaica. Friday afternoon, we're seeing rainfall across sections of some eastern, central, and western parishes. What does the GFS show for Friday morning and afternoon? Friday morning, nothing, just like the Euro. Friday afternoon, we're seeing rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes, just like the Euro. What do we see on Saturday morning? Saturday morning, we're actually seeing some moisture across eastern parishes. On Saturday afternoon, we're seeing moisture across some eastern, northern, and western parishes. What does the GFS show? For Saturday morning, rainfall across some eastern parishes. For Saturday afternoon, rainfall across some eastern, northern, and western parishes. What do we see on Sunday morning across Jamaica for the Euro model? Eastern parishes with some rainfall. Sunday afternoon, what looks like rainfall across some eastern, central, and western parishes. And we're going to be stopping it right here at the end of the 168 hours. So this is valid for Monday, November 10. And we're seeing the moisture, especially to the south and southwest of us. We're also seeing some moisture coming into the eastern end. What does the GFS show for Sunday into Monday? For Sunday morning on the GFS, rainfall across the eastern end of the island. Sunday afternoon, we're seeing rainfall across sections of some central and western parishes. And just like on the Euro, we're stopping it right here at the end of the 168 hours. So this is also valid for Monday, November 10. And we see some differences. The Euro has some rainfall coming into sections of eastern Jamaica, especially the waters to the south and southwest of us. GFS, yes, we're seeing that rainfall to the south and southwest of us, but not really seeing that across the island. We'll see how it actually plays out, and whatever happens, I will definitely be here to keep you posted with what occurs. And regarding the total accumulated precipitation forecast maps here from the Euro and the GFS, we're just going out to the next 7 days on both maps. And as you can see, both maps are in agreement that just like yesterday, the most rainfall over the next 7 days, we're talking about from now up until Monday, November 10. We're seeing the most rainfall in the dark reds into the purples into the pinks. That represents anywhere from 2 up to 5 inches of rainfall for portions of maybe the Yucatan, sections of Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, section of Venezuela, into section of Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Grenada, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines getting in on some of the action as well. And if you look closely, it's not only the GFS here that's showing that, but the Euro is showing something similar. So there could be somewhat of isolated flash flooding taking place in these spots, while other areas that are shaded in the greens, yellows, oranges, and reds should be getting up to an inch or less of rainfall. You're talking about the Greater Antilles into much of the Leeward Islands. And if we take a look at Jamaica's total accumulated precipitation forecast for the next 7 days, keep in mind that both maps right here are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until Monday, November 10. The Euro showing most of Jamaica shaded in the greens into the yellows. That represents anywhere from 15 all the way up to maybe 30 millimeters of rainfall, with the most rainfall to the northeast of us heading up to the 53 millimeters of rainfall range. The GFS showing the blues into the greens into the slight yellows, especially across the northern and northeastern parishes, representing anywhere from 10 all the way up to 30 millimeters of rainfall. And just like the Euro, the most rainfall should be offshore to the northeast of us. The GFS going up to at least 63 millimeters of rainfall. Euro just 53. We'll see it actually plays out over the next 7 days. Alright, so regarding what's happening across the rest of the Caribbean, we're seeing some low to mid-level patches of clouds pushing from east to west across the northern Caribbean. I'm sure Puerto Rico gotten on some rainfall. The Western Caribbean definitely getting on that moisture from that tropical wave, which explains why the Central America area is going to be getting a lot of rainfall within the next 7 days. And if we take a look at the Doppler radar imagery here near Puerto Rico, we can see that not much is taking place. We're having some isolated showers, light to moderate rainfall just to the east of the Leeward Islands. Some rainfall right here across the coastal northern portion of Puerto Rico. And if we load these images from earlier today, we will see what was taking place. Is it gonna load for me? It doesn't seem like it wants to load. Nope, seems like it glitched out. No problem. We're gonna see what's taking place shortly on the wider view of Doppler radar images. But the Barbados radar showing some moisture passing to the north of Barbados, looking like it's gonna be crashing into Dominica, already affecting southeastern Martinique. Some of that rainfall right here threading the needle between St. Lucia and St. Vincent. And we also see some moisture affecting portions of southern sections of the Trinidad area. And if we take a look at the wider view of Doppler radar images now, we're seeing that rainfall right here that we mentioned on the Cayman radar, just to the west of there. We're seeing the moisture associated with that tropical wave affecting Nicaragua, some moderate to heavy rainfall at that. And we're also seeing that moisture across southern Trinidad, just like what we saw on the Barbados radar. And regarding where the rainfall is expected within the next 24 hours, both maps right here from the Euro and the GFS are in agreement that there should be rainfall, especially where we have the reds into the the dark reds into the purples into the pinks, especially across section of Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, into Colombia for sure. And we see that both the Euro and the GFS modes are in agreement with that. Well, it's more so isolated rainfall within the next 24 hours across sections of coastal Belize, coastal the Yucatan, sections of Cuba, the Cayman Island, sections of northeastern Jamaica, especially Haiti, the Dominican Republic, sections of Puerto Rico, the US and British Virgin Islands, Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Bart's, sections of Guadeloupe, Soto, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, sections of western, northern and southern Venezuela getting on some of the action as well. And we can clearly see that both the Euro and the GFS modes are in agreement with this forecast. I know that when they're in agreement like this, the chances are higher for it to actually take place. Alright, so yesterday we spoke of a code yellow across the eastern Pacific. We can see that that has diminished, so tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days. The tropical wave that we were looking at doesn't look impressive anymore, so Hurricane Center has dropped that, so it doesn't look like we're going to be getting sunnier anytime soon. But regarding what's happening here, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center showing that the tropical storm that we've been watching has now evolved into Typhoon Imagery. So it's now a hurricane. Know that in the Western Pacific they call them typhoons. In our neck of the woods here in the Atlantic, we call them hurricanes. We also see that we have a brand new code red just to the east of that typhoon, so something that has a high chance of development within the next 7 days. We can see them all right here. Typhoon affecting the Philippines. The code red just to the right here, southeast of there. And if we take a look at the close-up of the typhoon, which is now situated across the southern Philippines for sure, well, the entire Philippines, getting a taste of the thunderstorm activity associated with this system. As of right now, it is packing 80 knot winds. We know that systems that pack 80 knot winds are classified as category 1 hurricane. Anywhere from 65 to 83 is category 1, and as you can see, it's expected to fluctuate because it's crossing over land. So 70 knots, 75 knots as we head into we're talking about, this is November 4, November 5. Look at that, as soon as it gets back over the water in the blues, 85 knots, 100 knots, and then by the time of landfall, 90 knots. And when we're talking about 85 knots, that's cat 2 status, anywhere from 84 to 95 category 2, and then 100 knots, 96 to 112 is category 3, so it could make it up to category 3 status. And don't be surprised if it overachieves and heads up into the category 4, category 5 status. We know that intensity model guidance isn't really the hurricane center's strong suit, both in the Atlantic as well as the Western Pacific Joint Typhoon Warning Center. So don't be surprised if it exceeds and goes up into cat 4, cat 5 status over there. They call them not major hurricanes, they call them super typhoons when they're cat 4 or cat 5. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.